Thank you. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? So this is technically my first time speaking at any conference, so I'm super nervous, and I hope you would find my talk interesting. But before that, I want to take a 360. Yeah. Sorry. So I'll try my best to ease my nervousness off to make it enjoyable for myself and for you guys as well. So my surname is difficult to pronounce, but it's pronounced as ng. so if you're an Angular developer, it's ng, whatever. so thank you, Render, for having me and believing me that I would actually deliver a talk that people would find inspiring. And yesterday I was sitting all day in the conference, and I was so inspired by all the talks by every inspiring developers who actually dig deep into their own topics and then make it interesting and make it inspiring. So I actually really enjoy being in this community, and I just feel everyone in this room is so passionate that somehow it drives other people to make interesting stuff as well. So this talk won't be actually technical at all, and this will be kind of the relaxing part of your whole conference. And I hope you won't actually fall asleep, but this will be a talk about let us just step back and then look at our role right now and look at our community right now, how exciting we are. And so for me, I'm relatively young in this field, but I just want to have a quick, hands raising part. And so who is less than 1 year of developer experience in this room? So 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus. Whoa. So I'm actually so this whole talk would be me as a relatively junior person to all of you to have my own viewpoint of my own struggles being in this front-end community right now. So you must be thinking oh, you're super junior. And yes, I am. So right now I'm working in Tokyo in an artificial intelligence company called Cogent Labs. And you might be thinking it's crazy to work in Japan, and people are just working non-stop, 24/7, and I'm not. So I'm actually having a really enjoyable time in Japan. And what my company does is we're located in the Sakura whatever part of Tokyo, and my company brings latest research in deep learning and bring them into actual use case. So there's one recent product that we call Tegaki. So it's recognizing the handwriting Japanese character. So let's say this is the Japanese character of render, renda, and then so it just recognizes renda and then render. So that's the part. So let me explain how I actually first started as my journey around the world. So I was originally from Hong Kong, and at 16 I started from the egg of and so I started studying in UK when I was 16. So I went all the way to land of tea. So I really like Earl Grey. Yeah. And oh shit, sorry. Sorry, I'm not used to this. So as I don't know, most of you, I'm not really sure what I want to do in university. I'm as confused. But I read an article of UCAS, and it says UCAS says being an engineer, you get to solve problem every day, and it's challenging. And I thought, it's cool, engineers, and I just want to be cool, a bit cooler than everyone, so I just picked aeronautical engineering. And it's and then, actually, when I get to dive in, I actually really, really enjoy engineering, because engineering is more people actually spot a deficit, I don't know what's the word, but in the world that needs improvement. And they think of the improvement, the ways to improve it, so that we actually get to a point that we actually have a lot of interesting product right now. And also, there's no standard answers in engineering. And because people are constantly pushing for the limits. And how people actually push it is by asking why. And things can be done in a million ways. So there's no like, oh, you're wrong because you're A, you're wrong because you're B. And so I have a lot of passionate classmates and who actually study who actually start loving aircraft since they're 3 years old, and I'm not that kind of person at all. And I was kind of wondering what do I actually want to do? Even though I really like engineering, but I wasn't really getting that vibe of aerospace. But then I actually end up being an aircraft engineer. So I don't actually have. When I went back to Hong Kong, I was having a role of rotation. So it's more like I spent a couple of months in office and then spent a couple of months as blue collar fixing aircraft. So this is me fixing a turbine thing, and it's actually it's cool. It's and then I never thought that I can be hands-on fixing planes, and it's not even a mock-up. It's actually planes that people actually travel after I fixed it. So it's kind of it's quite, I don't know, it's quite weird. But the satisfaction is quite enormous. But I start to realize what sort of engineering part I enjoy the most. So I start being kind of try to get to be more creative in the field of engineering, because in aerospace you don't actually get to be very creative because everything is legally binding and you don't actually get to create a lot. But I realized that engineering is so broad that I can actually apply my own skills to actually do something else. And so that one day I have an idea that I really want to get this idea out to share people's stories. So I just did it. And the more I actually do it, I thought, software development is great. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want by digging in the fields that you actually want to do. So for me, the first thing I dig in is web. So I decided to quit and do this straight and right. So all out of a sudden, my workspace changed from aircraft flight terminal to the terminal. And then it is sort of a drug. The more you do it, the more you get hooked to it. I'm sure a lot of you actually agreed, because you cannot really explain why are you so driven to actually do this more. It's not because you're kind of earning a lot because of it, but you just simply cannot resist to do it more. And the more you do it, the more you can actually do. So the wider the spans, and then it just maximizes your possibility. And when I look back to what I'm doing right now, to compare to what I was doing as an aircraft engineer, so actually it's pretty much the same thing, defect, and measure defect parameters, investigate root cause, and read maintenance manuals and get tools and stuff. So it's basically debugging. So as everyone, actually you can be an aerospace engineer if you decide to change. So there's that. Engineers are a creative problem solver. And not only it sounds awesome, but it actually truly reflects the possibility of what we all can be. Sorry. So I personally feel that right now, front end is at a situation that there are so many enabling tools. It's your own choice to actually pick up the right tools to actually enable yourself to do the ideas that you want to do. It's not like I want to pick up this skill set because I would have that skill set. It's more like you have something that you want to do. That's why you learn to program. And awesome things comes with struggles. So finally, it's the talk. So it's the struggles. So as a relatively junior guy in this field, I kept asking people what are their struggles, and I was in the React conference a few days ago, and I was telling people that I'm gonna speak about the struggles of a front-end engineer, and they all laughed because I feel everyone actually have their own version of it. So the number one struggles is making a choice of technologies. So front-end is a super interesting area that you just have new stuff coming out every day. It's not a matter of libraries, frameworks, but it's also hardware by all means, like augmented reality, virtual reality stuff. So the enabling tool is actually getting more advanced, and how do you actually make a choice to actually invest your time to learn about those stuff, and then make your own idea. And how do you actually strike a balance of making your own choice and making a choice that someone recommended you to do? So it actually feels like a bet. And so what is a wise choice? So am I experienced enough to make a sensible choice? And I think Jeremy yesterday offered a really good tip yesterday. So how we can actually choose is by matching your own philosophy. So what do you mean by matching your own philosophy? So it's more like if you have an idea, and this new thing that makes you feel happy, and like just as was offered said yesterday, choose whatever that makes you feel happy. But it's not that simple, I think. And personally, I just found like when you make a choice, then do it, and you will make mistakes. And after that, you make a better choice. And throughout this cycle, you just learn. And I really enjoyed this cycle in front end because the more you do this, the more you learn. And even if at the end you don't get to use it at all, like you just have it as, I don't know, something as weekend leisure time snack, but then you learn something. And you get to add this to yourself as, I don't know, new inspiration. So I want to share one of the stuff that I learned most recently is Redux Saga. I'm not sure anyone of you are using this, but this is one library that I really like recently because the architecture is really interesting, but the reason I adopted it is because, like, genuinely, when I change my code base into Redux Saga, I actually feel really, really happy. Like, the happiness that I cannot really explain, but it's interesting. So I choose it. But then, when it comes to a point that, what's the flexibility and scalability? Is it scalable? Is it flexible? Like, I'm not sure. And I always kind of think of this problem as if this. So I have onigiri, and I'm not sure what to put it. Should I just wrap it with a wrapping paper? Or should I wrap it with a paper plastic bag? Or cardboard, or lunchbox, or container? All of it is the right answer. But then, when you actually evaluate it, you actually evaluate with your own use case, but not by someone like Googling someone's like, I have an onigiri, should I just put it in a plastic bag? Because I think most of us tend to do that, because like Google, Stack Overflow, everything is just getting so, I don't know, the database is just so large that whenever you have a question, you can just like shout out, and then people will just give you an answer. And I think personally, it kind of deteriorates our own thinking method, thinking process as an engineer. And in terms of depth or breadth, and I mean, right now, front end is just a spectrum that like every day new things come up. And as someone who is relatively young in this field, how do I make a choice instead of being dragged by the trend? Like right now, like React, Angular, I don't know, it's like super hot, and that you cannot really ignore it, but you can actually ignore it if you don't find it useful at all. And it's like a whole new fish tank that there's like a lot of stuff. So should I just choose to pick the ones that, I don't know, people are like taking picture of, or I just pick the ones that I genuinely feel attracted of? And again, there's no right or wrong in my opinion. So I tend to just ignore, like not completely ignoring Google or Stack Overflow, but it's more like I choose whatever I'm interested in. And right now, you can see the spectrum of front end is so large that you cannot really focus at all. And one thing that I keep asking myself is it something that you actually really want to do? Is it something that you really actually want to dig into? If the answer is yes, then go for it. Just dig deeper in it and to know more about it. If it is not, then just have a basic understanding, and then you can just leave it off. It's my opinion. And also, given that we only have 24 hours a day, with that vast amount of information flowing in every day, how do I actually make a time to learn about everything in this amazing spectrum? So people said, like, you have a work-life balance, you should not like work over time, and you should have your own, I don't know, ambitions and stuff. But then, as a dev, it's kind of difficult. So after work, you go to meetups and stuff, and you get all excited about, I heard about this new technologies, but do I have the time? So I actually struggle a lot, and so it's like one time I was like really driving myself to do this in this circle, but actually you cannot do this, and it's lucky enough that you can work at something, like if your work, like either you're self-employed or you actually work for someone, as development work. But if that's not the case, you get tired and you get less motivated from time to time if you keep doing stuff, keep developing over time, and then actually it does no good to your development career. I don't know what's the next word, but it does no good. Because at the end, you need to kind of step back and relax, and because development is a thing that you should choose your own spectrum of interest as well. And there's no free lunch. And this is a Japanese word of free, because time is actually, I personally feel like time is the only largest investment of every developer can spend in their career. And it is a bet. You cannot guarantee, like, I'm spending this time to do this, that's why I can get a good job afterwards. It's not. But if you actually make a bet out of your own interest, you will learn anything. You'll learn something after all. And time is also something that actually drives. No, it doesn't. Time is not only the factor that drives us, but it's also driving the technology. The scene is changing incredibly fast. So imagine 10 years ago, actually I did a research on this, like 2007, it was the first generation of iPhone. So right now, we're actually having like a 7S Plus. And then the Kindle looks ridiculous back then. And then right now, it's all different. And like sadly, like my Windows Vista was launched in 2007, and it's dying out. And I think, like, I read somewhere it's kind of terminating its support this year. It's sad. So what about web development? So I remember when I was really, really young. So like the first thing I made a web page like everyone else. Like I made it with a Microsoft front page. I'm not sure anyone used it before, but we used like GeoCities and FTP and Bulletin. BBS, bulletin board system, to actually. But right now, when you look at the spectrum, like when you do like normally, what you do is you do Docker, you do like single page application Webpack, and it all just happens over a course of, I don't know, a few years. And these are all like how we actually spend from like Microsoft front page to, I don't know, GeoCities to Docker. It's actually by creativity by any one of us. It's not like by some god like overreigning the whole technical community. It's by someone is actually sitting in this room, actually drives that new technology and makes everyone's life happier. And one of the other struggles is stay creative. Like how can we actually stay creative and be the ones who actually invent the technologies? For me, it's one of the recent struggles because when you get to work like full-time, your creativity is somehow hard to control. And it's hard to actually do everything at work to be creative. And I tend to focus on my technical fluency and staying on the edge, rather than doing stuff that I personally feel interested, and I know that by doing that, I will stay creative. And I don't have a solution for this because I'm still struggling from this. But I personally feel, I talk to myself that it's not necessary that creativity is not something that you have to be really good at. Let's say my drawings, I'm super shit at this, but when you're doing this, I don't know, it drives you to make better illustration every time I look at my lines. It's super weird. But also I find having your own passion projects is also very helpful, as in it helps you to train your right brain. And so my sketches, this is my early day sketches, which have no meaning, and then it kind of revolves into something more meaningful. And again, you don't have to do something that you're super good at, and never force yourself to create unless you feel like you want to. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of, when you do something, I must make some massive amount of quantity of that. And it's no to creativity, I feel. Because at the end, creativity is something that when you practice more, it becomes your goal and ambitions. And the more random creative works you do, it drives it changes your goal and ambitions. And in reality, you actually get better at it, as in your skill set. And also, then it changes your bucket of the things that you actually want to achieve in your life. So the last struggle is dogma. So I feel like personally this is the larger struggles of all, because sometimes I feel in the community it's more because this guy said so that I have to use Angular. Because this guy said so I have to use this library in React to do da. I mean, these are true in a way that after you investigate yourself, and you know that it's true, but I feel like right now a lot of the scene is turning into a place that, because the development of technology is getting so fast, that you cannot actually keep track of it, so that you have to rely on someone else's recommendation or someone else's, blog post to actually make a judgment. And the more you actually rely on these stuff, the harder that you can make your own decisions on it. So this is a front-end memories. I don't know what's the word. So as a front-end developer, so this is kind of a dogma, like what people think I do, what my mom think I do, what I really do. I think it actually differs a lot by everyone in this room have a different version of this picture. But I don't know how to say it, but everyone actually knows that they are one special front-end developer. But then somehow, because the front-end community is so passionate, it's the scale is so large that you feel like I need to kind of follow the celebrities of this community's word to actually be a better developer. And I think it's completely wrong. And so dogma is something that you have an established opinion of that, but it's not proven. And I always, there's a blog that I really like called Wait But Why. It's by one of my friends who recommended me to read it. I'm not sure anyone of you have read it, but it's super nice. And there's a blog post called The Cook and the Chef, Musk's Secret Sauce. And it's saying that why Elon Musk is actually that good. People think of him as genius and stuff, but in fact he is not. The thing that makes Elon Musk so great is because everything he does in his life, he reasoned it with first principle. So let's say the talk yesterday by Anna, and she reasons HTTP. So it's not like every one of us would actually dig that deep into what HTTP is. We just use it. And the way that she actually took that step forward is something that makes her different from all of us. Because for me, I shamefully say that I don't have the initiative to actually check out what HTTP is. But then, when you actually have step that forward, you actually can be someone really different. and you can actually be someone like standing on stage to talk about it. So like people just get different motivation as in front-end developers. Like somebody would just be super excited by sorry, by the release of Chrome Canary, and someone would just be there's like Internet Explorer finally supports Flexbox, and my suggestions is just find your own excitement source and find a way to track it and contribute. So for me, I randomly wrote an article on Medium saying like setting up free HTTPS with Heroku SSL, and it's something that I'm not particularly interested in, but then I just feel at that time I have the need to do this, and so I randomly scribbled this blog, and then like it's actually someone recommended it. It's not like a huge number, but to me it's like, why do you recommend? Like, oh, thank you. So I feel like any one of us can actually be part of this, because like any blog post, like random blog post, even if it's just showing your own recommendation of stuff, and you write notes, and you can actually contribute to open source. Open source is not limited to like pushing to a REPL and stuff. It's every sort of word, because the one word that you suggest to someone else, and people might find it interesting, and you kind of get this ripple on, and you get the JS community just bond together more. And everything is a progression, right? So when you first do it, you're shit at it, and the second time you do it, you're better. And the more you do it, the more you actually find, oh, I'm actually okay. And this is my final talk of this. So dig deeper at anything, because I find myself like one of the struggle is from like when time goes on, I just don't tend to dig that deep, because I just feel I don't have enough time. I need to get this done, so that I just read this answer from Stack Overflow. I don't even look at the questions. I just look at the answer, and it's like, at some point I just realized it's not really healthy as a developer, because digging deeper is the way to go for any kind of engineering. Because when you want to invent something, you cannot really do something without actually understanding what was going wrong. So this comes the really cheesy part of the talk. So working hard for something we don't care is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. It's the cheesy part. But then it's very true. And I really keep this in my mind, like for, I don't know, when I realize I'm kind of stressful, and I kind of remind myself like why I'm doing this at the first place. And try to break out of your comfort zone, be persistent, and create, no matter of the format and size. I feel like a lot of people just want to create, but just kind of fear that I'm not doing like a large enough, like a cool enough. But there's no cool enough, like no standard at all, because your own standard. Like if you feel it's cool, then do it. And then the cheesiest part is you only live once. So as a front-end developer, I feel like this is really the golden age for any one of us, because the technology is so advanced that you can literally do anything with it. And be bold or italic, but never regular. And there's no ordinary developers in this room. And it's only your own choice of making a habit of whatever you do as a developer. So when I look back to my career, so this is some visualization stuff that I did when I did my aerospace degree, and that was something that I did when I was working as a developer. It's actually both visualizations. And at some point, I just stepped back and realized my whole career is kind of linked together, because I always have the interest of visually attractive stuff, and it is all connected. And it's no matter, like, it's one small step that you're taking right now. Like, after this conference, you might feel super inspired by someone's talk. Like, I'm super inspired by the live coding yesterday, and I just can't wait to try it out. And I think we all need to really try it out. It's not like after a conference, I do that, it's cool, but let me finish this dinner, and then I'll do this. If you want to do it, just do it. Because life is like riding a bicycle. To keep you balanced, you must keep moving. So let's go dig deeper. So yeah. Okay.